Thank you for starting the recording. We've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. So I am going to share my screen if I can find the document.
You can do it for you, Denise, if you want.
While you're doing that, Denise.
Stuff though with it. Hang on.
While you're doing that, Denise,
Yep.
we also the VAC happy hour. I put people through my consultant interview, so I don't know if they survived, Fran. Thanks to my guinea pig guy. So yeah, so they got to find out if they wanted to become professional consultants. So there you go.
Yeah, we decided it's a really hard job. So yeah.
Okay. Bear with me. I've got to get the right session today. I am running today in lieu of Steve. Steve could not be here because of a family matter. So I am standing in for him. So bear with me. Let me see here. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
You betcha.
All right, good. So today is Fireside Chat 107. Who knew that when we started this, we would be at 107? So, and we always have engaging, energetic, and very informative sessions. So thank you all for your support. We're going to be talking to one of our favorite Canadians, although we love all our Canadians, Scott Murphy, today. Oh, how come I'm not? There we go.
He's one of my favorite Canadians too.
Let's talk about what has been good on this week. So thank you so much to Kevin Keeler for your insights on Microsoft Teams. And I have to say, I learned so much in those 3 sessions. And if you are a member, you can go to the website and watch the replays of those sessions. I know that a lot of my clients are at least asking the question about going to Teams and deploying it on a wider scale. So that was super informative for me, and I hope you guys felt the same way. Let's see if you have any aha moments or questions, please put them in the chat. And if you could please mute and put any of your comments in the chat window. That's just helpful for the presenter. Okay, so these are Steve's favorite facts. So let's see how we do here. Blank hours are spent on phones in 2021 worldwide. How many hours were spent on phones in 2021? Anyone?
Between the entire human race?
That's what it says worldwide.
Well, let's see, there's what, 8 billion humans? 9 billion?
Close to it, yeah.
Well, geez, I'd say 50 billion.
All right, anyone else?
200
okay.
billion.
200 billion?
Yep.
All right, anyone else? Last call.
Wish it was multiple choice.
What's that?
I wish it was multiple choice. We'd have a better
I know,
shot.
right? he's really
billion.
testing us. Okay, so here is the answer. 3.8 trillion hours.
Brilliant. Wow.
Nearly 5 hours a day for the average smartphone user.
What?
Yeah. Can you believe that?
Is that talking or using the phone?
It says spent on phones. It doesn't say,
Oh.
it doesn't get any more granular than that.
Well, you gotta get me with the paperwork. I mean, that's what they're waiting on. They want to see the cost. I have to kind of put all the costs together.
So,
John Paul, you got to mute.
Please mute. Okay, next one. What was the first smartphone app?
Calculator.
The telephone.
Chat.
Calculator. Yeah.
Calculator. What else did I hear?
Music
Chat.
player.
Solitaire.
Contact integration.
Okay. Anyone else?
Making a call.
There you found the actual telephony piece. Okay, well, the answer is, according to the famous facts, there is no one pioneer. It was a trick question. When the Apple App Store launched in 2008, there were approximately 500 apps available. So all of those share the first app bragging rights. So everyone was right.
Except for the fact that the BlackBerry had applications, smartphone applications prior to the Apple Store opening.
Good
So
point. Yes, you are
if-
correct.
Okay, and how many
So-
on this call still have a BlackBerry?
wish I
Besides
did.
John and I.
Wish I did. Eric
Me
Eric
too.
had to hold me. Eric had to hold me down and pry it out of my hands.
All right, so let's see what's up next on Steve's agenda here. Today, we have Scott Murphy talking about the hybrid workforce security. And I don't know about y'all, but I think this is a very timely topic. So we're looking forward to that. We have an infomercial today. And who's our infomercial foe?
There we are. I was going to say, I hope you have
Okay,
my
good.
slides.
Okay, so we have Mary Lou Wallner from Eastern Datacom. Welcome.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you, everyone. I appreciate the 60 seconds. I'll try and keep this concise. But again, Mary Lou Wallner, I'm going to introduce Eastern Datacom as a new VAC member. We're really excited to be here. It's always nice to meet old friends again and new. I know quite a number of you from years of being in the industry. We won't talk about how many years, but let's say I've been in and around for a few. So a little bit about Eastern Datacom. We are headquartered in lovely Hackensack, New Jersey, where today it is cloudy and only in the high 60s. So for those of you sweltering, I apologize. We've had an interesting spring and summer. But we do assist clients nationwide, although our headquarters is in New Jersey. And as the name might suggest, we did start over 30 years ago in the data integration business, moved into telephony systems, but in recent years, we've evolved to a full service safety and communications company. We are specialized in the education market, although we still do business with, all areas of the business. And how that evolved is about 10 years ago, as many of us may remember, an event called Sandy Hook occurred. We had a lot of customers in the education space back then, and they came to us asking us for our help in bringing a lockdown and emergency notification type solution to them. So we spent a lot of time working with state police, safety, security task forces and such to understand what the real need was. Unfortunately, this is a very timely topic now, but back then it was fairly new and there was not a lot on the market. So we, as I say, spent a lot of time understanding what the real needs were and developing our own proprietary solution, which we call LENS, stands for Lockdown Emergency Notification Solution. And we built that on three very specific and primary principles around notification, automation of announcements, and those sorts of things. We are in well over 150 districts in New Jersey and around the surrounding areas. And we like to say, and we do take a holistic approach with our customers. So like many of our school education customers, they have many, many needs, but limited budgets. So we try and really take a look at what their existing technologies are, how we can incorporate those existing technologies and bring them into a much safer environment for their staff, students, and educators. We also do a continual amount of educational webinars and seminars. We're looking forward to bringing our full solution seminar to the group on August 16th. In the meantime, if anybody is interested, by going to my website, you can take a look at the new webinars we're bringing in to, next week on Monday and Wednesday. We're going to be co-presenting with Porzio Compliance Services, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Craig, who is a retired New Jersey police captain and is very, very been involved in a lot of the task forces around active shooter. And this is all around why most schools are not fully prepared for an active shooter event. And we know that there's a myriad of reasons around that. One of them is what we try and assist with, and that's around lockdown emergency notification and technology. So I hope I got that all in around 60 seconds.
Well, no, but I think it was very informative. I look forward to your session, your VAC webinar session in August. And I agree, this is a timely topic for many unfortunate circumstances, but it is definitely a time, I think it's something really, really important that we are being asked a lot about as consultants too. So if you haven't attended a VAC webinar, they are so worth it. They're deep dives into have and industry things. So I would encourage you to do that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mary Lou. And we are
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you. Where'd my screen go? Oh, there you go. Okay, great. All right, VAC president, do you have something for us today?
Oh, thank you so much, Denise. And Mary Lou, I got to say a warm welcome to Eastern Datacom, and thank you for your info commercial today. And it goes without saying, this is just a quick reminder to all the consultants and vendors on this call. If you're not a member, I can only tell you that this group has worked holistically together. I was telling Denise when we were catching up, a couple of years ago, we had a very large logo customer. And I can remember Rick and Byron standing in the rotunda when we got awarded it. And he said, we're all one team now. Our end goal is to take care of this customer and see this project through. And there's countless consultants on this call today that has held true on every project that we've all gotten involved with as a VAC member and as a consultant. So the power of this organization is huge. And if you're not a member, please join. And that's it for today, Denise.
Great. Okay, well, thanks, Dave. I would love to hear more stories from any of you that have had similar experiences. So you can drop me an email or post something on the listserv. Would be happy to hear it. So, okay, so I actually have a big announcement. I know you're going to hear too much from me today, but I have a big announcement. I wanted to show you something we have been working on. So I think many of you know that our annual conference is coming up in Dallas in October, and you may have seen some of our marketing save the dates and so forth come out. So I wanted to show all of you, so you could get a sense of kind of what we're looking to do. So I hope that I can get this to play. So bear with me. Can you guys see this?
You
Okay.
can see.
Okay, so
Yep.
hopefully you can hear it. If you don't, let's try.
This October, the Sctc is convening in Dallas, coming together as a community of like-minded technology professionals. When we meet in person, there's a certain energy and spirit that's present. Not just some flat face on a video screen. Or just more endless video fatigue. We'll be together, building relationships and friendships that bring opportunities. Opportunities to learn from our peers and industry thought leaders. Opportunities to gain knowledge that will grow our businesses. Opportunities to connect by coming together. Coming together to learn. Coming together to grow. Coming together is powerful. We'll see you there. Come together. Now. Over me.
Wow.
Well done.
Big,
I can't tell you how excited I am to be
oh,
in the
sorry,
house,
that's sorry,
back on the stage.
sorry.
At Hope City, and
where'd
just to
it go?
watch what God is doing here in Houston and around the world is unbelievable. And you're in the middle of a move of God, and you need to know that.
No, I'm very excited what God is doing in our lives. Got to go back to this. So anyway, so big shout out and huge props and appreciation to the marketing committee, specifically Melissa Schwartz and Mark Fletcher for putting that together. I mean, we are super excited about the theme, and we are going to open registration July 8th. And we've got some really fun and like deep dive presentations, that we're looking to have at the sessions and so forth. Great opportunities for networking, great opportunities to learn. And so we are going to open the call for speakers on that date as well. So look for it. Join us and like share what you know. That's one of the biggest benefits of being in this organization. So thank you very much for everyone that has participated in that. And the conference planning committee is just doing an amazing job. Super excited about the work we're producing there. So we hope to see you there. So, okay. So, and it is on our YouTube channel. I don't know if you knew this, but the SCTC does have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel, you can just go to YouTube and say, do the SCTC YouTube. There's lots of videos there that you can use in your own practices. So, just a lot of stuff going on that we're really excited about. Can y'all still see my screen?
No.
Okay, here, I'm gonna go back and share it. Here we go. So up next is the man of the hour. We have Scott Murphy from Data Perception. Scott, do you want to, I'll advance the slides for you if you want, and then we can get started. Scott?
Yeah, sorry. Thanks,
Okay.
Denise. I was muted. I was muted as instructed.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. Yeah, so Steve, I was out down at Extreme Networks Connect down in Nashville, and Steve cornered me and said, I need you to do another one of these. And I said, okay, what's the topic? He says, you were talking earlier about the hybrid workforce and security around it. And I went, yeah. And I said, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of other people here that are pretty up to date on the hybrid workforce and distributed hybrid workforce, but I'll take a crack at it. But what I'd like everybody to do is, if you have a perspective, an opinion as I'm going along, please feel free to interject, tell your stories. I'm going to provide some framework stuff here, but I'm saying I'm absolutely happy to share the spotlight here because I'm saying you guys have done a lot of work in this space as well. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the expert, but I am certainly going to guide the conversation based on my experience. So we go to the next slide, please, Denise. So I'm just going to put some framework around what I want to talk about here. So the distributed hybrid workforce, we all know that we're seeing a portion of the workforce that are permanently working remotely. I'm one of them. It has been decided that I am no longer welcome at the office because I'm too distracting, and they've sent me to stay in my home office and be isolated because I'm that kind of person. I talk too much. So some organizations are embracing that major shift, and others are eager to go back to the normal. But every business needs to find a workplace model that's going to work for them. But there's some really key things that we found that from a distributed hybrid workforce, you really need to understand what the impact of the organization is. And again, it's not a binary one size fits all. What we're seeing is that hybrid model where people are spending 1 or 2 days a week at the office and 3 days at home, or some combination thereof. And it's kind of flexible and fluid, and it's changing all the time. What are you guys seeing? Are you guys seeing similar to what we're seeing?
Yeah, it's all over the map, Scott. We've got clients that are 100% at home. We've got some that are encouraging back to work, some allowing, all over the map from our viewpoint.
What I'm interested in learning today, Scott, is that you have decided that you are permanent, no longer going back to the office. What drove that?
They don't want me back. No, I'm just teasing. No, what for me personally, and Data Perceptions personally, is we found out that as we adapted during the pandemic with tools, we actually became more productive than what we were at the office. So going to the office, driving to the office, showing up at the office for meetings, all those kinds of things, we got way more productive when we were remote because we could do things more effectively. The geography stopped mattering. We started delivering our consulting services using the same set of tools. We got better at the tools because we were using them all the time. And so that therefore the face-to-face interactions with internal staff didn't matter. Now it still matters with our clients, but not with our internal staff. So there was a culture change over that pandemic where we couldn't do it at home. We changed our business model. We changed our tool set. We embraced more of the tool sets that we were using. And with all of that put together, everything started working better. So the answer is I'm more effective sitting here where I am today than I am when I'm in the office.
You know, Scott, one thing that I heard was existing staff. That is true because it's kind of a hybrid. It's all over the place. But when it comes to hiring, not only is that a problem, but the leadership has had frustration where potential employees are, the first question is, how many days do I really need to come into the office? And leadership is saying, well, yeah, you got to be here all the time or most of the time. And they're losing potential workers because they're having some pushback from potential people coming into work for them. And that's caused a lot of problems in addition to the disruption with workers.
Yeah, we've seen that too, where it's actually, depending on which side of that coin you decide
add
to
another
plant your stake.
point along with Dan.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was add on to that. I think a lot of companies are considering the cost of commuting now has gone up substantially with the pricing. Like in Toronto, even if you're taking the GO or the train, they're going to have to increase their prices too. So I know the companies I'm working with are actually considering the cost effects of commuting.
Okay. So Cheryl, you broke in and out for me. I'm not sure that was for everybody or whether it's just my connection.
No, sorry, Scott, I noticed my internet connection is bad. I was just going to say the cost of commuting has really impacted companies and employees. So they're considering those costs in the commuting and realizing that if they can offer work from home, they are trying to still continue with that.
And to piggyback on what Dan said, is we are seeing our businesses clients in two camps. The ones that are looking at it as an HR opportunity, because now they can now go and say, I can hire someone that is thousands of miles away from my office and engage them with the technology to allow them to work remotely 100% of the time, but I can get that skill set and attract that skill set and that person because I can allow them to work at home. And I have others that are frustrated because saying I can't hire the person I need because I can't convince them to move and be at my office every day. So Dan, I hear you. It's an ongoing problem with our clients. Can we go to the next slide, please, Denise? Thank you. So these are just 4 key requirements of success that we've identified to be able to allow for that hybrid workforce to really sing. And so the first thing is you have to look at your applications and making sure that they are remote access friendly. Certainly software as a service, any of the cloud hosted type applications are fit right into that very, very well. But that's one of the key criteria for success that we've seen, so that it's not going back and hitting an application that's sitting in your office space. Deployment and management of endpoints, that's been a critical thing that we've seen as well. Being able to still manage people when they're remote, their devices, making sure you can deploy them so that you don't have this high overhead of having to manage devices that you don't have access to. So there's certainly a lot of better tools around device management available today, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Remote office setup, probably my biggest one that I see people not doing well at, and that is providing a home office experience that's equivalent to or better than what they provide at the office. So what we've in the physical office, and having equivalent setups in both the office and at home, so that when somebody is doing that hybrid situation where they're going in and out of the office, they don't spend the first hour trying to get set up and getting their technology working. It's got to be the same thing where they come in and they plug in their USB-C or dock of some sort, whether at the office or otherwise, it needs to work equally well. And the third thing is security management, and probably the second most neglected thing is because when someone's working at home, if you don't have the right tool sets, they're essentially that device is that device and your data is existing in the wild west of the internet.
Hey, Scott,
So,
this is Chuck. I will pipe in with a challenge that we ran into even before the pandemic and COVID, but when you've got work at home agents that are required to kind of VPN into the corporate network, and that's really all they're allowed to do. They don't allow these employees direct web access to surf to do this. All of a sudden you put a cloud platform in, you got to say, how am I going to hit the cloud? Do I allow dual tunneling? Well, that doesn't meet our security standards. So we've run into some situations where we've had to have some discussions with security about how do I get this guy to access applications through the VPN, yet also hit the cloud for my UCAS or CCAS.
And Chuck, I want to just add on to that. When you talk about a home office, I was doing a work this past fall with a client, and I was actually like shadowing a remote agent. And I was wondering why she was doing things so slow. And she was only working on her one laptop. And in a call center, you always need your second, screen. I don't care who you are, you need at least two. And it was interesting because I said to her, didn't the company ship you another screen? And she said, oh yeah, but I'm sitting on the couch right now, so I don't really want to go use it. And so it's interesting that even though companies are providing the tools and the access, sometimes the workers aren't necessarily using them appropriately. So there's another discipline that has to be brought into the work from home environment that I think sometimes can be missing.
Scott, Roberta here. Yeah, the other point I'm finding, because I'm working on a government contract and they provided me with a separate computer. It takes me 15 minutes to log in. They've got, really good security practices and the, security keys and all that kind of stuff. It takes me 15 minutes to log in just to get access to the network. They've got single sign-on, so they've got good security processes. But if I have a problem with the laptop, like they're just not set up. Like right now, I just booted it up and it's hung. They're not set up to support me as a remote user effectively. Right, their call center people are really good if you're at the office and you take things, but I'm 4 hours away from their IT group now, and they just don't know how to do the remote support, right? So that's a whole different area that they haven't figured out, and they've got like 85,000 people that are now doing this, right? So it is interesting.
That's a good point, Roberta, because this whole, I mentioned the deployment of and management of endpoints. If you're using a tool that was designed to work on the local area network and manage it in that way, which a lot of people are doing with profiles and Active Directory logins and pushing out policies using that is very bandwidth intensive, Whereas when you go to some of the more more current cloud-based mobile device management for laptops and things like that tools, it becomes much better. And I'll cover I got a couple slides on that moving on. So if we want to go to the next slide, please, Denise. So this is probably a little bit of a recap for most of you. So basically, one of the the cloud first is kind of the first priority for making this work for this distributed hybrid workforce, because you need to level the playing field between people working remotely and people working in the office. So you need to not have to have the remote user coming back into the office to access applications, or the remote user hitting the office first, be able to get out to the cloud to access applications. You need to have a level playing field, but you have to manage the security around that, because the next generation of all your applications are all cloud first. They're all going to exist in the cloud. No major application developer is designing an application to be resident in your office for the most part. There's lots of stuff that's that they're continually building and adding features to there. But if there's a brand new startup that's creating an application, they're starting in a software as a service or a cloud-based hosted environment. All the application authentication provisioning is becoming cloud first around single sign-on. Things like SCIM and SAML are I've talked about before. Those are kind of the where everything's going. All of your IoT and network management tools. Thank you, Extreme. being so great at doing those kinds of things. And again, they're cloud first. But you know, I mentioned Extreme, but there's lots of vendors that are in that space. And the last one is, you know, the APIs and data integration is all being driven into the cloud first. So this is an enabler to the hybrid workforce, but you have to take advantage of it. And go to the next slide, please, Denise. You guys have heard me talk about this particular slide before, but there's some key things that you always have to remember, that no matter what you're doing, whether you're working at home or working in the office, you need to be aware of the key security trends. And these are things like social engineering. That's still prevalent, whether the person's working at home or working in the office. How do you deal with that? How do you catch that social engineering attack? Do you rely on the employee just to have a good home network that's going to be able to deal with that, both on the personal devices and on the work devices, or do you put in the tools to be able to segregate the work and the home devices? Certainly, you know, employee understanding that when they're working at home, they're still responsible for security for the corporate data. You know, the fact that they've left the office does not mean that they can do whatever they want with their corporate laptop or whatever the case may be. I talked about it briefly. It's, you know, the cloud service of authentication security. Very, very important for being able to have them authenticating to their applications, authenticating to their devices, using the corporate tools, but being able to do that when they're working at home, so it's effective. And you don't have the problem that Roberta has, where she goes to sign into the laptop and it takes 15 minutes to log in because the authentication isn't designed around people working remotely.
Scott, and I have 1 gig internet, so it's like, it's not the internet, right? So that's just,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, and it's an underpowered laptop, and all their, you know, single sign-on stuff is just, overhead is awful. So sorry, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. Certainly supplier ecosystem. I've been talking about that, you know, the onboarding of applications, information exchange, software as a service, making sure that you're managing that, because just because you go to software as a service, you still have a security requirement for that onboarding process. Shadow IT and governing that shadow IT experience gets worse when people go home. So you need to be able to have tools to manage that. The reliability, and, you know, Roberta's another example of, you know, the reliability, you know, the performance, you know, to get access to those services has to be dealt with. You have to have a plan around that. And certainly there's still regulatory compliance issues, and also threat detection and response. How do you know when there's a threat on that remote laptop, whether it's in the office or not?
Hey, Scott, can you make any comments about zero trust?
I guarantee you that I will in about 3 slides. How's that sound?
Thank you.
Scott, can I throw in one other thing? That is, in most offices, you have, should the power go out around you, you usually have battery backup for things. And most homes, with the storms we've been getting a lot of power bumps around the Toronto area and outages. So even a few of my customers noted that, where if you were in the office, you usually have backup battery to support your workers. And at home, that's not going to exist.
Yeah. Great. So we go to the next slide, please, Denise. So next generation security. This is you know, something again, you've heard me preach about this one before. You need an integrated security framework around this to make this work. You know, as John just pointed out, zero trust is my first thing, is having that zero trust environment. And I've got another slide in a second to talk about that. On always on security. So this is probably the biggest shift that we've seen in the industry. And I've talked about Fsc before at an earlier one of these sessions. And we have one of our, Cato is one of our members. And they're probably one of the leaders in this space. There's a number of other ones like Zscaler and players like that. But, you know, so that certainly Fsc is not, you know, exclusively Cato, but Cato is one of the better players. But always on security. So give you a good example. So when I come down to my office, and I say down because my office is in the basement, in the morning, I log in and to my laptop, And it immediately on starting up of that, the very first thing that starts is my Cato VPN remote access client. It uses the single sign-on of my laptop. It logs directly into our cloud firewall hosted by Cato in this particular case. And I connect in. So all of my traffic goes through our corporate firewall from the second I start up. And that happens every single time I log into the laptop. And it stays on. And if it disconnects because my internet disconnects, it reconnects as soon as it detects the session again. It detects internet connectivity again. So that to me is, if you're going to do one thing and do one thing well, go to a SASE model for your remote access that has a cloud-based firewall, so that every user, whether they're sitting in the office or whether they're sitting at home, are always going through the corporate firewall, but not having the constraint of going through the bringing up a VPN connection back to the office and then doing a hairpin turn back out to the internet, because that just doesn't work well for the end user experience. So cloud-based firewalls, SASE, the remote access, really, really important here. The modern authentication and provisioning, being able to authenticate when I'm at home very, very easily, that's important too. So there's some new, protocols that have been around for about 5 years, but are really becoming popular with SAML and SCIM. We talked about that a little bit earlier too. Using cloud-based advanced artificial intelligence for your security platforms, really, really important around that as well. That allows you, that's sort of the advanced threat protection. It's a critical piece of a zero trust environment, but basically detects anomalies in near real time, using cloud-based resources to detect if something's gone wrong. So a good example is if I accidentally click on a link and it's inappropriate and something happens, I'm immediately alerted by our cloud tools. Both, I usually get a Cato warning, and I get a Microsoft warning that's monitoring the security on my device to say, you've clicked on something inappropriate. Here's the remediation tool, the techniques that you need to take to deal with that. And usually for us, it's just rebuild the laptop, which I'll get to in a moment, which is really, really easy. I can rebuild my laptop with basically just doing a reset, and it reloads all my applications within 2 hours. So cloud access security broker, part and parcel of that, but what that allows you to do with both SASE and also your cloud security, like Microsoft's tool sets, allows you to control access to those cloud apps and monitor it. So that's absolutely critical, because then everybody heard of shadow IT. Well, it gets worse at home. Well, when people go home, because they start using other tools, start using personal tools and things like that, those are all threats to the security of your data and systems. And then the enhanced security for partners and suppliers. I won't go into that a whole lot, because it's a topic in and of itself. But sort of the four key areas are the SASE architecture, the modern user provisioning and authentication, the advanced threat protection, and the overriding piece of this is the zero trust. Any questions on that? Anybody want to comment? Let's go to the next slide then, please, Denise. So for those of you, John, you were interested in talking about zero trust. Zero trust is not one thing. Zero trust is a constant evaluation of every interaction you have and never trusting any one of those interactions. So just because I have a connection up to our Microsoft data that we have stored in the cloud does not mean that I'm automatically trusted. It evaluates it on every single interaction I have with that to validate that I'm allowed to access it, and it's encrypted all the way through. So, and it looks at not just one thing, it looks at a whole bunch of things. So things like, it looks at my user identity. Obviously that's with multi-factor authentication. It looks at my device. Is my device compliant and fit with the access to that particular data set? Do I have am I on a network environment that is appropriate? Am I am I in a coffee shop, and it's going to put different rules on it from a coffee shop, whether if I'm in the office? and because it's going to provide different access at that point in time. Because maybe you want to say, I don't want to have this set of data available at a coffee shop because the physical environment isn't as secure. And it evaluates the infrastructure where everything is hosted. So whether it's at Microsoft or in the office, or in AWS or Google, wherever it happens to be hosted, it evaluates that I have permission and there's no threats available involved there. It looks at the applications and does that cloud access security broker to make sure that the SaaS apps and on-premise apps that I have access to, that I have it and it's being evaluated on it, and most importantly, your data, whether it's email, documents, structured data like databases, all of those things are evaluated in a zero trust environment. And it's the underlying concept of zero trust, and that works very, very well for this this hybrid workforce, is that it's never trust, always verify. That's kind of the underlying context, and it basically allows you to put security policies and enforce it based on a variety of vectors, and use artificial intelligence to apply that security.
That slide is golden, Scott.
It's
that
really,
one is a really good overview of zero trust. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, this is a big deal. Complex concept, tried to simplify it here, but again, I could talk for an hour on this, so just I'm gonna go to the next slide. If anybody has any questions on this, I'm happy to do a deep dive on it at some point in time in the future, or we can do something offline as well.
How do you detect when somebody's had a behavioral change, and he may have been a good guy when he logged on, but now he's a little bit PO'd and wants to do some nasties?
Well, it basically, because it's using artificial intelligence, it starts to learn about my activities. So it depends on the platform, because there's a bunch of different zero trust platforms. Google has a really good one, and Microsoft's got a very, very good one, and there's several other ones out there in the marketplace. But you have to pick a platform, and they all use AI. They all allow you to build sort of what your typical activity is. And I know that if I go to for example, because of the tools we use, if I go to a website that's atypical, it'll do a pop-up and say, "Ooh, this is not your typical activity. Do you want to still do that?" And it sends an alert to the administrator at the same time. So, for example, or you can have different types of places that I go that are just not accepted, or might go. Like, for example, pornography is a classic one. If I went to accidentally typed in a pornography site, it alerts me right away that I'm not allowed to go there. Because I'm saying sometimes you type in an address, it's like, oh, I mistyped it. I put an extra E or an extra X on the end there, and all of a sudden it goes to something inappropriate. But it prevents it in this case using a zero trust model. So there's lots of ways they do that, Richard, but it's but over time it builds up a portfolio of what's an acceptable use case for your organization. It looks at it both aggregately and on the specific use case. So if it sees a deviation, it logs it and flags it, and you can do a whole lot of interesting things with the data out of a zero trust policy enforcement tool to go into things like Microsoft Sentinel or something like that does your SIM and SOAR type investigation. Did that answer your question, or just confused?
Sort of. But I was looking for a bit. We'll talk later.
Sounds good.
Call me
Next
when
slide,
you-
please, Denise. Okay, so again, you've heard me talk about this topic before. Work from anywhere security. I haven't come across any technology that does it better than Secure Access Service Edge. It's really designed around this from the ground up. There's lots of vendors in this space. Like I said, there's one of our members, Cato, does it well. But Cisco, Umbrella, there's and Meraki have some pieces in this. There's a lot of players in this space, but the key elements that if you kind of look at the diagram here, the key elements is you're going to have some SD-WAN capability, which give you potential for redundant internet connections, whether you're at an office, you're a home worker, or whether you at a corporate office, to give you more reliable connections. I've come across a number of our clients that are, for some of their workers, that are actually providing 2 internet connections and an SD-WAN connection for their home-based workers, because the internet, one or the other internet connections isn't reliable enough. And now they've come down in cost so much, it's actually cost effective to do that. We are seeing like the remote access cloud firewall, which is always connected, and application security. I talked about that. And so the SD-WAN and the cloud firewall and the always connected capabilities of that is very important, but also allows you to control where they connect on a wide area network, but also on where they go on the internet with cloud access, security brokers and things like that. So, and it has to be easy to use, because that historically has been the bane of most VPN connections, and people will just not turn it on unless they absolutely have to. This is something that has to be easy to use, automatic on, gives them access to what they need to do. It has to give them that same experience at home or at a coffee shop as it would as if they were sitting in the office. The other thing I would mention here is the quality of service. So just quality of service here too, which is kind of important for things like this, where it detects the fact that it's a voice or video traffic and automatically prioritizes it over to my kids streaming Netflix, upstairs. Next slide, please. This is more on this. I don't want to beat this one to a pulp, but there's some key things that it does. Does anybody have any particular questions about SASE? Because I'm saying I think this is one of the fundamental pillars for being able to do a hybrid workforce. This is just another diagram that that we've developed to sort of show the big picture of this. I'm sure that my slide decks could be available afterwards, probably, for if anybody wants to do a deeper dive or has any particular questions here.
Yeah, Scott, a question. What's a recommended throughput capability for this kind of service?
I've had this work at very, reasonably. Like I've been running on, I think I'm running on 500 down and 20 up, if I remember correctly, and it works. I'm not having any problems at all. Obviously, if the more the better is the real, if you can get the gigabit connection. I can't get gig where I am right now, but I can. There's lots of people that are 2 blocks away that can get the gig connections. So yeah, I would say that probably as long as you have at least kind of 100 meg down, it will work reasonably, because it really is dependent on the what applications you're using and how friendly those applications are to bandwidth. So you can only do you can only put, if one application needs 200 megabits per second to work effectively, then obviously 100 meg connection is, even if you do with quality service, is not going to do you any good. Does that answer?
Yeah,
John?
yeah, thanks, because I'm sort of deprived, and I know that I won't even come anywhere close to those rates.
Well, Starlink, we have it working over Starlink. It works actually very well.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
It's not that bad. It's only like $125 a month now in Canadian dollars.
Yeah, as long as you don't have a area surrounded by trees so that you can't see the bird.
Well, chop down a couple trees.
Boo.
Yeah, I'm teasing. I understand your pain.
Scott, Roberta here just for a quick second. And one of the things, having done telework for decades now and being involved in remote work, the thing we have to we as consultants have to educate people is, it's not a privilege to work from home. It's, if you want good performance, you have to spend the money. You cannot sit there and say cheap and cheerful and expect to, do business from home. So people will spend more money on going out to movies and food and booze, and they bitch and complain about investing in technology, but it pays for itself, especially us as consultants, in productivity. So we have to do, put the money into the technologies, computers and the internet and everything else. It's just a cost of doing business, right? And a cost whether you're an employee or a consultant, right? So it's just, you got to pay for it. And so if you have to put up a tower and extension and get above the trees or whatever, but you got to spend the money.
Yeah. And it comes really down to, what would you, I got it, the way I talk to my clients, I said, listen, what would you have spent if you renovated your office, like your physical office, and what would you spend per person? That's the kind of money you need to talk about spending when you deploy someone to work at home full time. It's not, and maybe it's more, but I say at least that much money, because I'm saying you need to be putting that same potential capabilities in the home user's hands as they have. You can't just expect them to say, okay, whatever you had for your home user, Netflix and Disney Plus subscriptions will be fine. No, it's not. It needs to be, you're talking about providing an enterprise experience. You need to spend the enterprise money on that user's place that they work every day.
And especially with the average cost of a cubicle in Canada is $1,000 a month per employee. So like, spending $150 to get reliable internet with the UPS is cheap. It's a big return on investment.
Well, it's huge, because you figure the square footage, just the fact that you don't have to have the same square footage of office anymore, saves them a ton of money. There's a culture and mentality shift that needs to happen. So maybe we can go to the next slide, Denise, please. Denise? Oh, it was slow. So another key element of this is identity management. Doing traditional identity management on premise just does not provide the tools that it used to. All of the identity management tools that are out there, there's lots of different ones. Like you can go to, obviously, Microsoft Azure AD. You can go to the Google equivalent of that. There's also things like Okta and a variety of other third-party tools that will hook into all these things depending on the corporate environment. But you need to improve your provisioning. You need to improve your single sign-on. You need to provide that experience so that users are more secure, but also then incorporate that data, hook it back into those other security tools, so that those authentication mechanisms all get logged, all get uploaded into your authentication tool sets, and you need to have that single experience. And this is just a quick diagram. One of the things we talk about a lot right now is skin provisioning, which a lot of these cloud HR apps can now do. So when you hire someone, you put them into your cloud HR app, uses skin provisioning to automatically add that user to Azure AD with the appropriate groups that they're a member of based on their worker profile. Then based on that, their applications get deployed and to all their applications, whether they're software as a service or whatever they happen to be. All of those applications get deployed, get provisioned appropriately. So when that person logs in for the first time, they have access to the tools that they need to do with all their user identities using single sign-on. So not all applications are there yet, but certainly it allows you to do that and do it very effectively, so that whether the person is sitting at home or in the office, they should be able to access this much more easily, and the experience is better for the end user. And I keep talking about that experience for the user. This is the number one thing that needs to be driven through this process. Is you can't make it two different experiences if they're at home or at work or in the office. It has to be a consistent experience for the user, or they're not going to be happy and they're going to leave the organization. They're going to go find something else to do where they are getting that consistent or better experience when they're working at home.
Scott, we're getting to the top of the hour here. Let me check the chat to see if there are any questions. Okay.
So
I see.
if there's no,
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I think we're good. I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Just some comments.
So maybe go to the second last slide, Denise.
Okay, tell me when to stop.
There.
Okay.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about this, but I wanted to kind of put a bow on it just as we wrap up here. The things that I talk about when people are working from home is the key for that experience is give them a good chair. Like you can't, I say that and I say it again. It's like to tell my clients, don't expect them to sit on a dining room table or on the couch or anything like that. That's not a good working environment. It's not good for your customer's experience. It's not good for your staff experience. Give them a good ergonomic desk and chair, whether it's a sit-stand desk or whether it's just a good chair or whatever that person needs, just like you would in the office. Make sure they have a properly provisioned laptop with a dock so that they can have or desktop computer, doesn't have to be a laptop, with the appropriate peripherals. Make sure that they have all the tools that they need to be able to do their job, whether they're at home or whether they're wherever they happen to be. Monitors. Give them the screen real estate they need to be able to do their jobs. Most people get provisioned two screens at the office. Provision them with 2 screens at home. Make sure that they have the ability, at least 2 screens. I have 3. But to have that screen real estate so they can work effectively, they can not go blind trying to look at their desk or trying to look at their screen. And because I don't know about anybody else, but as I get older, I absolutely hate looking at stuff on a little bit laptop screen unless I absolutely have to. I want something a little bit bigger. And then obviously, because we're going to be relying on collaboration tools so much, as we heard with Microsoft Teams over the last few weeks, have a good video camera. You can don't buy the $50 video camera. Buy the good one. I love the Logitech Brio myself, but a 4K camera or at least a 1080p, something that's good quality. Has works well. A good headset. I bop around different headsets just because my ears get sore for a lot of things. So I bop around from this one, which I happen to like because, especially when this has got noise canceling. So when people are working upstairs or the home phone rings or whatever the case may be, I don't get distracted. But that's, everybody's different. So I'm using a wired one in this particular case, but I also have a really nice Bluetooth one here that works well, that sits around my neck. I don't like ones that sit in my ears, but that's because that's me. That's a personal preference. I know Eric at the office loves the new Google Pods. They work really well. The Apple AirPods work well for different people, but whatever they are, make sure you spend the money. So you're typically replacing a phone set when you're buying this kind of stuff. A good phone set costs what, $500 US, $400 or $500 US. You can buy all this within that budget for when you're deploying things at home. So spending the right money and making sure that if they're not having you have the good sound as well within it. Can't be just the microphone as well, and lighting. I have a ring light here, so make sure the lighting is good where I am with the right color. I know if I use the wrong color light, my face goes all red. Not that because my natural complexion is quite rosy. Nobody laugh, please. And so yeah, that's what I was. Work from anywhere has to equal work at the office. So I'm going to leave it at that. I've got other stuff there if Steve wants me back in a couple of weeks to talk some other stuff here, but that's my spiel on the hybrid workforce.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. This has been great. I think that the content was really great. We had some great discussion, and we'll work with Steve to hopefully get you back to go over some of the other content that you have here. So appreciate it. Good job. And anyone else, you can reach out to Scott directly if you'd like, and hopefully we will have him back here shortly. So thank everyone for their participation, and we look forward to seeing you on our next Fireside Chat. Have a great day.
Thanks everyone for the chiming in and for sharing the stories.
Mm-hmm.